Thank you all for coming here to CGIAR's AR Pavilion for our presentation from the Youth Climate Report. The Youth Climate Report, for those that don't know, is a UN program designed to give young people an opportunity to tell their climate stories with video. We have a digital database with over 1,200 videos from 160 countries on all 7 continents. And we collect these videos through a process of curation that involves several programs. One of them is the Planetary Health Film Lab, and one of them is the Ghana Youth Videography Program. That's what we're going to talk about today. This is the 4th year of the Ghana Youth Videography Program. And we have 4 films to show made by young people in Ghana. Now, in previous years, we had films made in the south of Ghana, reporting on mainly the flooding and the rising sea levels that were taking place in and around Accra. But this year, we went to the north of Ghana to report on the droughts taking place there and how climate has impacted directly on agricultural and food issues in the north. And the other added perspective we have here is that the farmers we interviewed are all have disabilities. So we're looking at the additional challenge of physical disabilities compounded by climate impacts to the agriculture where they live. So let's begin. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's now in its 4th year. The Ghana Youth Videography Program is an initiative that empowers young people in Ghana to create films about climate change and other environmental issues, using visual storytelling to drive awareness and action. Collaborating with organizations like Wilfrid Laurier University, the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA University, and the UNFCCC's Youth Climate Report, the program trains youth in videography to create documentaries that highlight local challenges and present evidence to policymakers. The films are screened locally and internationally, including the UN climate summits like the COP conference we're all attending today. Okay, the mission of the Ghana Youth Videography Program is to equip young Ghanaians with videography skills to tell stories about climate change and environmental challenges, making their stories heard at national and international forums. The content. The films focus on the impact of climate change on communities, agriculture, and ecosystems throughout Ghana. Examples include documentaries on topics like open burning from fast fashion and the rise of solar energy in urban areas. These were some of the films we've had in previous years. And finally, the partnerships. The program has partnered with various organizations, including Wilfrid Laurier University, GIMPA University in Accra, and the Youth Climate Report, as I mentioned. Okay, now the project leads for this is Jeff Brishow. He's a full professor in the Department of History at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. For over 30 years, he has researched the history and contemporary experience of development in Ghana, including the topics of colonialism, disability, and climate change. And there's his face. Also, his partner, Magnus Mofofo McCarthy, is a full-time professor at the Lyle S. Hallman Faculty of Social Work, Wilfrid Laurier University. Dr. Mofofo McCarthy has held numerous Canadian research grants, including Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, that's known as SSHRC in Canada, exploring health and mental health in the global south. Okay, this year's films. The first is Beyond the Rows of Struggling Seeds. It's 5 minutes and 35 seconds, and by Faiza Majid. That's the first film we're going to see. The next one is The Other Side of the Soil. That's 5 minutes and 57 seconds by Dokorugu Abdul Hakim. And When the Rain Stopped, that's a 6-minute film by Godfred Atayose. And the fourth and final film you're going to see today is The Withering Harvest. And that's a 4-minute film by Eturnum Ahiator. And Eturnum has made several films for us before, and she's gotten really good at it. So you're really going to appreciate this. I should also mention that Dokorugu Hakim's film, after he completed shooting it, he lost all his camera equipment. Yeah. He was in a very dangerous place in the northern Ghana, and he lost all his equipment. There's a fundraising program going on now through GoFundMe trying to replenish the equipment that he needs so badly. So I just thought I'd mention that to you, that these young filmmakers give an awful lot when they're contributing to these works. All right, so here's the films. We're going to switch to the movies now, and I'll come back on the other side. Thank you.
Northern Ghana has a lot of potentials when it comes to farming. This is evident in the richness of our land. However, the climate is changing. Farmers are struggling to adapt, especially those with disabilities. Today, we tell the stories of 2 farmers with disabilities and the challenges they face in these changing climates.
Nyala pukpara ka kor banchi kor nyuya kor kawana ka kor solabis so yum penna mbana pilko do mbana do mchang shukurinda ko mana ko kuzamana mana taw ma dan kure dan ko gbubtum do yula tunda ko ta kawana no kawana wara ta ku pilla pariwo kasawa kana tizan wanda ta mi la pa kirai yo wanda mi ta kawana wara blan nan
san wanda nan ma ban da ara wannan ni kwar nyar kawan she kawan wa she tirawo nyam pala da to ko araran to ko nye kawan kwa mpibe piena asham amada pa pi kawan kwa mpiba karnye sanzel mazo.
For years, farmers relied on their fields to provide food and income, but as the rains become less predictable, each season brings greater uncertainty. The crops that once fed their family now struggle against prolonged droughts and shorter growing periods.
Climate change has had a lot of impacts in the farmers in northern Ghana recently. If you check in the last couple of years, there has been a lot of unpredictable rainfall patterns. Last year, for instance, the rains delayed quite a bit, and when they came, it was so much that farmers had already made very big losses. For farmers who are doing livestock during the drought periods, they are unable to get water for their livestock, and then also, getting feed becomes a problem as well. Apart from that, climate change has led to the increase in the prevalence of pests and diseases in northern Ghana, especially when there are very hot the weather conditions. It creates room for some kinds of pests and diseases to fester.
Kadirwa kata sang bambra chang puntere te sang pi chirai sang chen chira ta kasawa mi kayu ay kuna apaka yambo hamu moni ya ay kuna bina to ko re bandiroso ne ti hardin masa dan to tiyala.
Experts confirm what farmers already know from lived experience. Climate change is intensifying hardships, but for persons with disability, the challenges are multiplied. Limited access to resources, exclusion from policies, and greater vulnerability shocks.
For farmers who have disabilities, they face so much challenges as compared to, let's say, farmers who are not disabled. For instance, if there is an information that has to be shared among farmers, usually it is shared through cooperatives or farmer groups. And so when there are trainings, for instance, they call all the farmers except, excuse my word, someone who is a cripple or someone who is visually impaired, because they feel that for such people, they don't need this kind of information. Meanwhile, there are also farmers just like them, and so they end up being left out of such trainings.
There was a Parliament to my no, Yazan and something and Damo, Katabaha, Tenini for Parliament. Domin I couldn't hear the so-called song and that song. Open song, all songs was saying song of Diana. You know, don't take an soon sooner. The Mavico car check at the Bahade, Nini for Parliament. They could go acre by ta, and Tagana me iron dress a share character number Benzerota.
The voices of these farmers remind us that climate change is not an abstract issue. It is lived, daily, and deeply personal. By ensuring that farmers with disabilities are included in climate action, we secure not only their future, but the resilience of their entire communities.
Me do bayre ana ya dia ba kan me na ba ha me de se me do bian kakra bi na me ye se akua adwuma me ye no 20 years ni
me ko school na me gina form 1 na ya de na ma me ja school akro from Isaac me freaking tempo na me ya adwuma for ko
me din di Sunday tensana me te tempo abang pangpama minante mi ha enemy ha me enje se
e sha se na ensan na me ensan nya enye se na neti na me ho odin na me kwa school na me nimade ya de na ba sha se free me ni paduam afena ma busu afo mi papa mo dimini na dominanti ndro ni a doctor hospital ejindro sa no musi afi time aso se drone ejai drone ji so back in tempo hade na afena mi sa no na anya ayese that ba ya de ne shase no na enye se na ne
me kwa se ayi nkora mo se se sori de ni ko se da se on be kwa shuma na makwa jina o che mo joy no mo yen kakra
bra e wo se mo de dua no na se mo de tim no ma no na so no ni so nto na no ma no e wo nesin wa na ayeti aburuso do agisa mutwitwa so nyina na ahoden no na so eti
se yenya dibu nye twoma busumi mienu mu ne so na saase ya enso se Ban anya sa no nante bio. E gina ho a be hwa na da ba to da ba ko. Na gina ho a busumi be mienu. Afie na asamba. Na fiwe e ko busumi bunya kire busumi mienu no mu. Na ehu se nkan so ni beba. Anti ma basa. E to ba ko a na gina mo na asamba to ba ko. Na sanjina.
Tiama no ma dia wo pese we na nyina na aka achire. Te dia wo pese we na wontumi nye. Wodi ye na nso na nto ne bremu. Wo ani da so bi abia fertilizer wo de agu aburo no abia na makoi na nso anto angusu. Entimi nnane. Entimi nye adwuma. Je se ayeka. Wonso na to gusu a fertilizer na timi nnane. Na timi ayi adwuma. Watuma anya kakra. Na nso anto angusu.
Bunya akire busumi mienu mu no. Yetimi kurakura baabi no. Obetimi na nso nyanto obetimi adua baabi auto baayere no. Obetimi akurakura no adua agum. Odua agum wi a afie nso nyato ba kompe. Won se na binu bewu. Na binu so tata mu sa obeto ka ho a afie na oyira asanko baabi a ededa allowance no wadua agum. Egina ho a hono na odi benya duane ne ntam. Na sese odua na senso le beto na sa antoka se a dia wadua no ne nyina basai. Aya ye tonsuo no edi akogu bayire ne so ama na agbo. So sese ya fa motokin ba ko a do o se 2 million. This o se 1.5. Aya dia ye ntiminto. Enso ni nti enso na ye nto ana ya brese. Enkan so ni to a se first na se ne dia ya mbre biem. Enti sese ne enso no entimi baso amaya ana aya ye kotonsuo. Dia mo ho den no. O hwe mo dia no a da dia mo di kai edi nso no gusu no. O hwe mo bayro na different gum. Enti abanya sika no boa me a metumi dia bɔ me gofie ama fom na yekase na aboa me mse menya bibi menya sika kakra.
E won se yenya muwa ya nya ntitiye bi amfire bebi de. Nso titi muwa nka me he bibi te se sika no. Na ka me saka ama ma siesi asase no. Se tratan na number plawa na me dia do me dia plawo. Se apafo na mafo no ma bola ele. Na mafo no ma bola ele no. Na fe ame na me twensu so no to ya na de madua na madua
Me hwɛ sɛ adam aban ebetu dampo no maya ɛna ga hia
na de matuma kan de se bibi sa tuwa de wo wa ho de batumi no man ka sa wontumi nya bibi wo batuma ya bibi ma bibi ya bibi ti wo batumi aye de wa ho de batumi se de ba ya ahokyere no enye bebre.
In the rural fields of northern Ghana, farming is more than work. It's survival, heritage, and hope. But for farmers living with disabilities, each season brings not only a changing climate, but a new challenge to overcome.
Yeah, now no dehne wo so dan chang ba biaram pulo. So fiscal challenge nyaw. To akara nan dan ta mo mo ne inde pam mam bi hapun. De chemka de ti anan gba pam hom. Problem gba sata me kan to gbaba so. Koma punu nya un kwarko na ka kwar shinkafa na zuwa ai sma ban kwar da ye ko sai ko pa ka me ben shaba ban bar shedin kan yambra dan to down ma an bi hapunu shem nyala malaita nan fe yanga ron wani kyan ko na ambo ya timgo amma ri kun ya ma kanwa mbando ko kyan kutum halin ya tara ne bor sa she kan ti yasa to da ye mu har kun ya malaita nan be ja ka sati to buma to nguna nye ka germa to ntirma
to igbe nkwar ka so kan no ga farambe wu
Over 5 million Ghanaians live with disabilities. Many rely on farming for their livelihoods, yet they face barriers others do not. Inaccessible farmlands, lack of adapted tools, and exclusion from government programs. Despite climate action strategies nationwide, very few policies are tailored to meet the needs of disabled farmers. The result is a silent struggle hidden in plain sight.
Farmers with disability, they are people that are severely impacted when it comes to climate change issues. Because of their physical disability, they are already affected by access to resources. And then the little resources that they have, climate change impacts to are now also affecting the little resources that they have, making them more vulnerable to climate change issues when it comes to adaptation. Some farmers, disabled farmers that relied on lands that their family had, are now heavily impacted on climate change issues. And then they get barely nothing. And then their adaptive capacity too is very, very low because of their physical challenges, making it very, very difficult for them and then making their situation more worse.
Didahma baby fuya. Tra kwea. Ka kawun ma ban ka sanse ma ku kuru saha. Hai ban shatra ba yi. Simanin mun da so ka tanye biya. Ka wani ma tra banya.
Mula nda yara effect, mun da yara effect ma da yara nda kula kiciyar ka sama ta bazan. Ma me kola da mabwala ka sa ku mir ka koma ku be kiru dan kar suru yonga ka to nya dan borsha so dan pa be wa kanya ku ka sama bazan ma wan wi ba ku taragun za anya kar na da ku mimi ngba gram yi par abenye ko na ma so yula de zura ke mun kan ya ka fa ta san chan dipulo.
To help curb these occurrences, Changing Lives and Innovative Partnerships CLIP has over the years introduced climate adaptive technologies to smallholder farmers in northern Ghana to improve upon household resilience to the impacts of climate change.
We have been implementing some adaptive strategies, and I think organic compost is one of the preparation and then application where soil have lost its fertility. So we try to see how vulnerable farmers can use available local resources that are available to them that they can get without no stress and then no cost to be able to boost back the fertility of the soil. And then also we have tried to empower them to create some irrigation systems in the communities that they can diversify their agriculture because they are mainly crop farmers. So if they also, add a component of vegetable irrigation, leveraging on existing community resources such as their community dams to be able to boost up their resilience when it comes to climate change.
As we gaze towards the future, the call for climate action, climate financing, and ending climate injustice must be amplified. The time to act against climate change is now.
Mrs. Unamen Nanti me last unkalanta for na me woman. Sa wonumuna miss nya sa or how.
Na I first no na ya die bi na ya dan. Aya me hene. Me titi sa na te say I dani kuro. Na mo si aya kwato na me kwato. Kwato na ya chwa me.
tama menyem wo mo no na omo ye mi na omo akoro so nti na ba ko nan ewo mesirem ti omo ko ye mi operation no ti operation ni mu na me sore ya na me te ya wo se me ti santampa na menim se bia eye atwans na ye kuru na ma na ese basanti ewo hwa ediri be ye 5 years reko no na me tinka wo me kase ni mu se eye me ya de me de na me sa atende na me timi di ya adwuma me soa ne ma me kwafom bibia de mpe me timi ye by eduru every 10 years reko no de be 5 years ni de me na metimi anante kakra kwa adrefo ba mentimi soa ne ma na mentimi koto me koto a nan no en peja afo me kona metimi ade na wotwe na me ko biem because me ko a me ba de che mentimi sore timi nko afo mu ntenten tama me kunu wo ho no ona ya na wodo ti afi we so no so firi mu nkola na mama o ma adua o ma ado afi me de ahode ni ho ndimantimi ando
me do ba ire na me do abro kakra na ani beans kakra nkola mo de omoko school ba omopon school ba me ma omoko abia abro honom abro asia omutimi yeden atimi kodomu kakra me yeso kwa abia ono so wakwa watimi akoye asajima no bia kakra ana afum kurano ba ira fum kurano wura ho a watimi ayeden akoye ho ajima kakra ba ya no mu na ekọ anim kakra first na abru na me ma na akọ anim ba ya ho de na yeden ati ba na ba ya na yeden asini kakra
die yetimi hunu se last year sensu anto ama niama anya yiye ba yere hye aburu hye bibia yedu ye bia ne ho efa afudie last year sabre nyina bia na nsu nto
adiana o ya no antimi nya ste sefes na o yeden otimi nya ni maniko anim sa no se adiana kra o anya no nsu ni to sa no ontimi nya no sa aburu ndia o ba ya ji se adru na weden o ye bia adru na unfa adru ngusu a antimi mboa untimi abru no o ba da unfa adru ngu asia o unye bindi
ese kuya adwuma no so nko ana wo ye wonni adwuma bi aka ho ena wo san na ye wo ye wantimi anko amba obayira adidi senka aban be boa me ana se menya opanyini bi se wo be boa me a di moa bi a wo de be boa me no be ye me de
ano tambia me twinsu ba mintimi ye de hu se me bike mintimi twinsu wanyi motokia aboa me a kidi amodi me ye den adi nsu ko ma me afu
for them, and not only artistically did they really grow. You see some of the cinematography there and some of the styles of going around and all this, but they also became very good storytellers, right? They were able to do the interviews and find out exactly what the story was, convey that on film, and add some music in the right places to intensify the emotional engagement with the stories. And they've done all this in just a couple of years. And some of the filmmakers, this was their very first film. So I think it's an amazing accomplishment for these young people to, yeah, thank you. Yeah, to tell these stories. And that's why we keep going back. So this, like I said, it's our 4th year, and we continue to go back and get a new group of young people and train them and bring them to other parts of the country. This was relatively new to us. We heard about farmers with disabilities living in the north, but we hadn't met them. And when we sent the crews up there to interview them, these are the stories we came back with. So it's a very shocking thing, and to see how climate change is directly affecting not just the farmers themselves and their families by not having enough crops for their own dinner tables, but also for the community around them that relies on the food that they grow for not being available anymore. So I just wanted to I encourage you to go to the other films that we've made in the past 4 years. You can find them on this website, ghanafilm.org. All the films made by the young people in Ghana are there. Okay, you can see the progression from the very, very beginning when they're holding their cell phones to the more professional films that we've seen today, and their storytelling techniques as well. But still, they're all very impressive stories about flooding, about there was I think it's the world's largest outdoor market that is in Accra that burned down while they were filming there. And so they were able to tell the story before, during, and after. That's one of the films from last year. And almost every story is remarkable like that. So I really encourage you to check them out. We also have another screening. Well, that's today. Yeah. And all the funding comes from the Canadian government, in case you're wondering. This is the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, known as SSHRC. And they provide the funds to Wilfrid Laurier University and myself and Dr. Grisho and Dr. McCarthy to go to Ghana and do this training. The Youth Climate Report has several programs such as this. I mentioned just the Ghana one today, but we have another program called the Planetary Health Film Lab that brings us to the circumpolar Arctic, for example. And we work with indigenous communities there, like the Inuit and the Sami and the Aleutians. Pretty much the same thing, training them how to storytell with video cameras and to create these little 3-minute films that get added to the UN database here. So if you want to find out more about all those films, and there's 1,200 of them in 160 countries, I encourage you to download the app. We have an app now, but it's only for Androids. The Apple app will come out next year. You can download it for free during COP at that link there. And it was designed by, Naima Asghari. It's part of the CFAL York's Swan Lake Citizen Science Program in Toronto, Canada. And there's all our various websites and social media sites. I encourage you to like and subscribe. And then you'll find out every time we add a new film to the database, you'll be the first to see it. Okay. Now, the whole purpose we do this is just not to give youth a voice in filmmaking, but it's also to help them collaborate directly with the policymakers. These videos actually inform and influence the policymaker when they can't get to these certain places. And often the policymaker is obliged to read peer-reviewed academic papers that sometimes they're not properly skilled enough to understand fully. So these films provide a visual context to those academic papers, and it really helps them have a better understanding. So that's the purpose of film for the Youth Climate Report. We're now in our 14th year. So we've been doing this quite a long time. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it began in 2011 when I was asked by the communications department to develop a program that would involve youth in film. And the idea was that the policymakers would use this information to supplement the other data that they get from scientific sources. Okay. So there we go. There's my latest group of students at Gimpa University in Accra. If there's any questions, we got some time. Happy to take them. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you submitting some of the films to festivals or something to give more visibility, or how you do that? Thanks.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you for that. Yeah, all the films get submitted to Film Freeway. If you know how that works, it's a website which is a clearinghouse of all the film festivals in the world. So we apply to festivals that have a certain theme, either African film festivals, environmental film festivals, climate change film festivals, disability film festivals, whichever ones apply, we will send our films into those festivals, and they've been quite successful. I'm guessing about 50 film awards from all these festivals collectively over the past 4 years. So they get good exposure, and they get recognized by committees for excellence too. Yeah.
I really impactful films and this like really learning about these what these farmers are going through and makes you really feel really emotional and how we can help. So first question is, how can we support these farmers and these films and like yeah, just help them get out of these systems and like yeah, just I don't know, just I'm just wondering that. And then like the second question is, since we know the impact of animal agriculture, especially intensive animal agriculture, on the environment, any plans to focus on that because of the impact it's having on climate change and indirectly and directly hurting these farmers in the future?
Yes, great question. Thank you. The challenge for funds is always big with any kind of farming situation anywhere in the world. What we're trying to do is send these films and the representation they make here at COP directly to the federal government in Ghana, because they basically said we need more evidence that there is a problem, and then we can address it more directly. So this is the kind of evidence that we're hoping to provide. The films themselves are not enough, but they need to see that there is global attention on this issue. And that usually motivates a government when you speak about their problems internationally. So the other things we're trying to do is academic research is a way of raising funds for us to go there and do studies. And with the funds available through those studies, we can help the farmers directly as well. So there are some avenues available, but film is one of the most important ones because nobody really knows about a problem until they see it. You know, you can hear about it, you can read about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's enough information to act on it. But when you see the film and you see the actual farmers and you see their barren crops, that tends to motivate people to action a little more. But thank you. That was a great question. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, thank you for the work you're doing for the people in Ghana. I was just curious, how did you get in? You seem very passionate and you won't really want to help people in Ghana. I was just wondering, how did you get involved, and tell us all about that journey.
Well, thank you. It was really an academic journey. You know, I started off as a filmmaker in my early career. I was a documentary filmmaker for National Geographic, Discovery Channel, CBC, BBC. That's what I kind of did when I was in my 30s and 40s. And but then I started to see the more I was doing science and nature documentaries, that's what they were called in those days, I started to see more of these issues arise that seemed to disproportionately affect Indigenous people or people living in poverty. And so I felt that these stories needed to come out a little bit more and be told a little differently. So in 2009, in 2009, I made a film about Antarctica during International Polar Year, and the UN heard about it. And because they didn't have a lot of the scientists from Antarctica available to attend the COP conference in Copenhagen that year, it was COP 15, the scientists told them to call me because I had a film where I interviewed them and I showed their methodologies and their findings. And so they looked at the film first, then they invited me, and we screened it 25 times. And you know the little goodie bags that you get when you come in? The film was in there as a DVD. That was the first experiment in using film as a data delivery system. It worked out very well because a lot of the delegates seeing the problem were more inclined to do something about it. So it became the topic of conversation whenever there was a negotiation meeting. It always kind of came up. And so because of that, the UN asked me to do a second film, this time in the Arctic. So I crossed the Arctic, the Northwest Passage. It was a film called The Polar Explorer, and it was the very first time a crossing of the passage was ever documented on film. And so because that worked out so well, they said, what can you do for youth? Right? And so I thought, okay, well, young people do not have the resources to make a professional documentary feature film. So found out another way of doing it was to have them do short little films, like about 3 minutes. They could do that very easily. They had the technology. They could use their phone, right? And so they could tell these little stories. And then what we did in the beginning, we would stitch them together till we got about an hour. So maybe about 6 or 7 of these films. And then we showed them at every subsequent COP conference. But then in my PhD studies, I discovered a new platform thanks to Google Fusion Tables, which is basically a GIS map. And they were experimenting with a sandbox that I was allowed to play in, where you could add videos and all kinds of metadata, including photographs, scientific reports, journals, charts, graphs, everything. You could really pack the pins full of information. And that was the birth of the Youth Climate Report as a GIS platform. So that I called the GeoDoc. So I wrote my dissertation on that. I got my PhD for it. And then the very next year, I presented that platform at the Paris Climate Summit. And I don't know if anybody's been there to the Paris Climate Summit, but they had these monitors all over the place with the map on it. And you had little headsets you could put on, and you could touch the map and watch videos anywhere in the world that young people had made. So it was the following year in Marrakesh, COP21, when it was announced that it was now officially a platform of the UNFCCC. And that was very exciting because now there was some credibility behind and some great exposure behind the films that these young people were making. They just weren't doing it for likes on social media. They were doing it to inform and influence the policymakers of the United Nations. So kind of a long drawn out story, but does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? Don't ask my age. I'm the world's oldest youth. My next project, that's a very good question. I think it might be a sequel to the Antarctica film because I really want to see the difference between 2009 and now. So I'll probably be going back there. I just finished an expedition in Norway in the Arctic. We climbed to the Svartesen Glacier and we took some measurements. And if you go to the press room on the UNFCCC site, you can download the entire report. And there's some startling statistics there. Do you know we're going through a marine heat wave in the North Atlantic? The water there is extremely warm, warmer than it should be. And so we reported on all that as well. So yeah, I get around. All right. Good. All right. Thank you for your time and thank you for attending. Thank you.